Hello, it's Paul Valencia. Tony Liberatore is over there.
Good afternoon.
Pointing to my left, kind of. A little to my right, a little to the right.
Yeah.
Cale Piland. Tony is associate principal at Fort Vancouver High School, correct? Did I do that right?
Yes, thank you.
You
did.
Yeah.
But you mean this time you didn't call me the acting principal?
I was going to say, but you got.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you're not going to make any comment about how he really runs the building.
He does. From what I heard, he runs the building. I don't know.
Okay. Who did you hear this from?
I have a voice in my head.
There's medicine for that.
Cale Piland is athletic director for all of Evergreen Public Schools. And I think
athletic director.
Yeah, and I think he's got 17 other roles, but we can't get into those.
There are a few other things, but you kind of went. Normally, you go really bassy when you try to introduce me there. You kind of went high pitched there. You feeling okay today, buddy?
No, I'm not. I mean, Raiders are bad, and your Seahawks are awesome, right?
Well, I don't.
They're at least 1-0.
It's week one. Who knows?
Yeah,
they look good.
So,
the Broncos could have been the Broncos could have been the worst team in the NFL.
Right.
We don't know it.
Correct.
Right?
But so anyway, welcome to our podcast. This episode we'll talk high school football has started. So we had week one. We are recording this on Thursday, September 12th. So it should post on Friday the 13th. Whoa, is it Friday the 13th?
It is Friday the 13th.
Crazy things
Jason
could happen
Voorhees'
tomorrow
favorite
night.
day.
So right before week two. So we're going to talk a little of football highlights, and we're also going to have some fun telling some of our own personal highlights of athletic achievement or failure. But we'll talk a little bit about just what happened in week one. We're going to talk about administrators and scheduling chaos with Cale. We're gonna ask Tony some how do you send a message to players when things aren't going well, and we'll do that, and we'll certainly talk a little bit of Mariners and Raiders, or Mariners and NFL, I'll say. So because
there are other teams in the NFL other than the Raiders.
54%,
exactly. So, I hope the Raiders win 54% of their games this year.
You would take that right now,
Yes,
wouldn't
I
you?
would. The way they look. Okay, so we're going to have some fun with the first one. So I was reading that Jake Olson of Ridgefield had a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown in the same game. So congratulations to that guy. That's like a dream come true to have two, what do they call chaos plays? I don't know. Just you can't plan for those. You just can't put it in the game.
Well,
plan.
maybe special teams a little bit.
Well,
but
you're not going to have two defensive touchdowns or whatever.
Two non-offensive touchdowns.
Yeah, you don't.
Great.
You don't plan for that. So it got me thinking. What's your best achievement in high school sports or college? Because Cale was a college football player.
This is true.
Was that deep enough?
Well, that was almost like scary. That was like mysterious, like the stories from the deep.
Yeah, we're like there were a lot more colleges playing football back then, so maybe that was why.
Oh,
I don't know.
That's true. In the state of Washington, there were more colleges.
That's very true.
I'm going to ask Tony the same thing, and maybe I'll share my crazy one was a JV game, but we'll get into that later. But we'll start with you, Cale. What's, Jake Olson of Ridgefield had this incredible night. What about you?
In college, I was a tight end, but I was definitely more of the blocking tight end.
Okay.
So there weren't a lot of outstanding. I didn't put up big numbers, so I definitely did not score 2 touchdowns in a game in college. I guess I don't know. I mean, I scored multiple touchdowns at Mountain View, and I guess I did have a pretty big touchdown against Columbia River.
Is that the year?
You would have graduated, I believe.
No, but was Bernard playing then?
John Bernard and I were seniors the same year. Yeah,
okay.
So I had about an 80-yard score at River. We still lost the game, but that tied the game in. I don't remember if we were still in the third quarter, but that as far as plays that I made in high school, that's one that sticks out.
Cool. Were you fast or just everyone fell down?
Oh, I was lightning fast, Paul.
Okay.
I mean, you couldn't even time me. I was that fast.
All right, there you go. Tony, what about you?
Sure. So it was the 800. ninth grade year, kind of a sub-district meet.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my PR time ever. It's still my best time ever running the 800. I was racing against a kid named Darren Swan, and I wanted to be able to keep up with him. And so I got to 2:06 in the 800. Did not beat Darren.
Yep.
But he was probably in the high 150s or low 2s.
Did Darren go on and replace his? Did he go into the family business?
He did. He is
He's a dentist.
He's a dentist.
His father was my parents' dentist.
Yes.
Neat.
There you go.
See, you get all kinds of history
You just
at
don't
the Clark
even
County
know,
Today
yeah.
podcast.
The Clark County Today. And so my PR.
Hey, can we get him to sponsor?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Darren, I mentioned you. Please call Paul Valencia.
Yes.
But the question is, do you like Burgerville or no?
So that's cool. That's cool. So did you? Yeah, 2:06. I don't think I could do the 400 in 2:06.
Well, I couldn't get that today, Paul. But
Yeah,
yes,
so
I
that's
still
pretty
like to run, but not like that.
For me, I played high school. I played football all the way up to high school. I was never good enough, like you, Cale, to be in college or anything like that. And I just loved playing. It's my favorite sport, as everyone knows. But it was as a JV. I actually did get an interception on varsity football. That was really cool because it was the Mount Hood Conference Game of the Week on cable access, if you guys remember those things.
Oh, wow.
So
Aurora Channel 7?
Yeah, something like that. So that was fun. But my biggest moment was I got an interception in a JV game, probably my sophomore year, and I freaked out. You know where they say act like you've been there before? I'd never been there before.
Right.
I freaked out. And I was running around like, I don't know. Very next play, we fumbled. And then the very next play on defense, I got another interception.
Two out of 3 plays?
2 out of 3 plays.
Awesome.
But then I walked off the field, and the head coach was, you know how head coaches are. They sometimes are there to watch the JV. Yeah, I'm talking about the head coach of the varsity program. So the next day he comes up to me and goes, your reaction was a little bit different the second interception.
Because I'd done it.
I said, yeah, that's it. I should have said, because I'd done that. I'd been there before.
What's the big deal?
And I said, I was so tired. I thought I'd have a few more minutes to catch my breath from my dancing and moving around.
Right.
And it was over exuberant. I wasn't rubbing it into anybody. I was just so happy. But nowadays I'd probably get a flag for what I did. I didn't spike the ball or anything like that, but I did run around the field like I was Deion Sanders or something, and I was not Deion Sanders.
But did you go Lester Hayes style stickum?
Lester Hayes. I'm not that old. They didn't allow stickum in the late '80s. So, but it was. I love Lester Hayes.
Yes, the judge.
Yep. All right. Here's another cool thing for the Heritage Timberwolves, at least.
Yeah.
Heritage snapped, what was it, a 20-game losing streak? It was some crazy long losing streak.
Yeah, it'd been a while for the T-Wolves.
So congratulations to the Timberwolves. Back when I was covering day-to-day high school football for all those, for decades, that's what I used to do. I don't do it quite like I used to, but we'd talk about what we'd wanted, and I never wanted anyone to go 0-9, and I never wanted, and I didn't care if someone went 9-0. In fact, I kind of like that because you always that's a chance to go deep in the playoffs if you're really, really good. But you never want anyone to go 0-9.
No.
And Heritage has had a couple of those seasons, and so I'm grateful that they got a chance to get that victory. But Cale, as a coach, you never experienced that type of losing streak, but you did experience a few losses. I know. I think was it Juanita. You weren't.
We were 2-7 my year at Juanita,
and then your first year as head coach at Evergreen wasn't great. It wasn't bad.
We were 5-4.
Yeah. But how did you deal with the tough times as a coach, and then speaking as a coach to the players?
Yeah. So you really have to, when you're looking at a season that you're struggling. It really comes down to relationships you have with your players, because they've really got to feel that you care about them and that that they are important to you and in what goes on, and then really they've got to be important to each other, so they can band together, because there's going to be all kinds of naysayers. Whether that's sometimes those naysayers are at home with them. And it can be kind of tough to walk the halls with your classmates who know that you're struggling. So you really have to try to avoid your team splintering, and the way you do that is through the strength of the relationships that you have with them and they have with each other.
Got it. Tony, of course, you're associate principal, not the principal, I know, at Fort Vancouver. And we know Fort Vancouver has been struggling in many sports, but especially football over the years. But I wanted to ask you, your athlete, every time I go to Fort Vancouver, the athletes are incredible people that they want to win and they keep showing up and they have a lot of school pride, but it's got to be tough. So as an administrator and as someone who might help another young coach, what's your message to your guys, during the tough times?
Well, it's the same thing that, Cale was talking about. The only thing I would add to that is I think the relationships first, and then, that the process of how the head coach is teaching. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I'd want to emphasize with the kids. And just, I can remember one time, granted it was freshman football, a little bit different, but when Kelso was really loaded, and I just went into the locker room one time. They were just like, man, what's going on? Like, we just weren't a sort. And I said, hey, let's just try to get a first down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like 1% better. Let's execute on these plays. That's all I could think of saying at halftime. Like, let's just get rid of the negative plays.
Yeah. When you're in those situations, you have to redefine what success is.
Right.
Because there's
That's
a lot
good way to put it.
There's a lot of coaches in teams that go out on, and granted, week 1 and week 2, everybody still believes that they can win. But when you get to week 7 and week 8 and you're having a down year, you really have to redefine, okay, what is going to be success tonight? You don't want your kids, but everybody knows there'll be certain games that that are going to be played, and the outcome is never at question. Right. So how are you going to define what was successful for us tonight? And coaches, that's a hard job, but coaches have to do that.
Mm-hmm. And we've said this before on here a couple of times, is it, depending on the type of team you have, being able to, try to develop that senior leadership, even if it's just 4 or 5 seniors and the rest are, maybe 4 or 5 juniors and then a bunch of underclassmen, being able to build in that leadership, I think is part of that process. And then to balance that though, right, is like coaching next year's team this year and being able to, set up those successful whatever goals like Cale alluded to. You have to be able to do that on football. Mm-hmm. And, Paul, you asked me specifically about Fort. I watched the Heritage game. Heritage has two really good athletes at skill positions. And it was the depth thing. Mm-hmm. We moved the ball, right? Heritage skill kids, he got loose. I don't know his stats, but his yards per carry was probably pretty good. I don't know, but he got loose a couple of times. But that's what you do in football, right? And so you think about, okay, so the Monday, the message to the team, like, we're going to work on contain. Like we sometimes break down, but we have to be able to secure the edges, basically, right? We got to set the edge. We got to see, whatever term Coach Ephraim is using.
Make a 7-yard gain, just be a 7-yard gain, not 70.
70.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
Well, you have to be able to teach. That's
it,
right? And that's why people, when we look at hiring coaches as teachers and what and because everybody knows that getting coaches into the building is paramount to building a successful program. And my argument always is if we have somebody that we want to hire as a teacher who is a coach, they better be a good teacher.
Right.
Because if they're not a good teacher in the classroom, they're not going to be a good teacer as a coach. And so those skills are synonymous together. So.
And I know you want to move on from but what I was thinking is the young head coaches, or even sometimes more experienced head coaches, when you're in that losing streak, you're looking for the silver bullet. Mm-hmm. We have to we got to get the W, or and then. You can't start the coach has to be true to their values. They have to know their values. They have to be true to them, and that process. Like, there is no way you're going to get kids to buy in if you're trying to run a new offense every week. Sometimes like there's injuries and we may have to go from, maybe 3 wide to double tight.
Yep.
Right. Okay, I get it. But you can't just and different formations, different defenses, but you just can't throw out everything you did in August.
Mm-hmm.
You start out 0-3, and then you're going to start over again. I've seen teams do that, and you just you want the quick fix.
Oh, and the other thing you have to be really conscious of doing in that is sticking to whatever core principles you're building your program around from philosophically, because it could be like if you're like, oh man, we got a chance to win this week, but I've got my quarterback or somebody, let's say somebody did something that deserves disciplinary action, and you could look the other way if you're just trying to get the win, but then that's just going to undermine what your program is going to be down the road. When
culture
when
is what you allow.
Absolutely.
Yep.
A sophomore is going to see that, hey, you just let that senior play when he broke the team rules.
Yeah.
So why would I follow him?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you got to think of things like that too. It's not just X's and O's. So that's fascinating. So among some of the other highlights, I'm just going to throw out a few here. There's a late touchdown pass. Battleground got a win. Camas beat Roosevelt 12-6 in Adam Matheson's first game as Camas's head coach, former Mountain View coach. And I put in my notes here that only 12 points, but Roosevelt apparently has 7 Division I.
I was going to say
they're
players on defense.
Coaching change there, and let's say there's some people playing for the Rough Riders that did not play for the Rough Riders last year.
Right. I don't necessarily want to critique that. I'm just going to.
I'm just saying
I'm going to assume they're all eligible.
That's fact.
They weren't on the roster
because I actually.
You would assume that that the school has done its due diligence and everybody is meeting the WIA rule for eligibility or has gone through an eligibility hearing. But there's a few dudes playing for Roosevelt that did not play for Roosevelt last year.
And it's funny because I got a message asking me to write about a story similar to that with one of our teams in our county. I'm not even going to name the team right now because I'm just going to assume for right now that everybody is eligible to play for the school. So we'll worry about it. But anyway, my point though is it looks weird to see a 12-6 final score.
Yeah.
Right.
But in 7-8 weeks, we might find out that was a pretty impressive win.
Yeah.
Because the team they played might be that good, especially defensively. So let's see. Evergreen beat Union for the first time ever. Cale, how do you deal with?
Yeah, who are you rooting for?
Well, first of all,
I was rooting for a good game.
Athletic director for all Evergreen schools, so that includes Evergreen and Union, and the former head coach of Evergreen and Union, and a state champion from Evergreen, and a state champion with asterisk. You filled it. The state championship is vacant, but you claim you fill it, right? You fill the vacancy.
I do not make that claim. I do not make that claim.
Your former principal might.
Yes.
Bellevue vacated the championship, and somebody from down here wants Union to be moved up.
I think there's a few people,
but not you. But anyway, what is that? What is that like as the AD for for 4 schools, but when 2 of them play each other, and then in this case, it's your 2 schools that you used to be the head coach. What's that like to be on the sideline for them?
Like I wasn't really tongue in cheek. I just want to see both programs perform at a high level, and there was a lot of good things on both sides to take away from that game.
Right.
I think a lot of people they look at Union and they think it's Union. Well, Union the last couple of years has really struggled. So it wasn't like Coach Pine was walking into a ready-made. He wasn't pulling a cake out of the oven that was ready to be a state title contender, and he knew that. I mean, so there's work and there were a lot of things to take away from how the Titans represented themselves on Friday night. They were really positive. And it wasn't like they played awful. Evergreen's good.
Yeah.
And they,
by the way, Union's defense played really much better the last 3 quarters, I thought.
Yes.
Evergreen moved the ball a little bit more in the first half. And second half, it was just one big long touchdown run, if I recall.
But then, Coach Swain, when he came into Evergreen, it was not the program had not been successful at all for a number of years. So that's kind of the fruits of his labor and his coaching staff's labor and his kids' labor to turn that program around. And so, happy for them, but also saw a lot of really good things from the Titans, and I think both programs are definitely headed in the right direction.
That would be Mayor Cale Piland. He is now going into politics.
Hey, look.
Write in vote.
No, don't call me a politician because if I'm a politician, you ask me questions and I don't answer the question. So I just talk about what I want to talk about. I actually answered that question.
Can we talk
Paul.
about Camas Roosevelt? Yeah.
Exactly. So, let's see here. Skyview. Here's what's just funny to me. So Skyview rallied to beat this team from Hawaii, and I found out that the Hawaiian team, was on week 4 of its season.
That's crazy.
So what?
So you play.
Yeah.
So they started classes in early August.
Well, yeah. And by the way, Washington, there's a lot of high schools that play 2-3 weeks, started the season 2-3 weeks before Washington and Oregon do. But what I'm saying is to schedule your first game against a team that's playing their 4th game. That is tough. And
it's insane.
Thank you.
They did have to travel 2,500 miles.
So Skyview did win the game. They rallied to win the game, but so good for them.
I never even wanted to play. So there's a thing football coaches all the time say: the you make your biggest improvement all year from week 1 to week 2,
right?
Because it's the first time you've really played somebody else and you played an entire game. So I never even liked playing somebody week 1. Our first game, who had already played week 1, because now I'm getting a much better version of that team than what I've seen on film, and so the fact that it was game 4, I mean they're at mid-season form by that point.
Just incredible. And it used to happen because Oregon had 0 week. You guys played either Jesuit and I know Camas did it once where Jesuit already had a game and Camas was first game.
Yeah,
yes,
that was like one of the biggest.
No, we played. Camas played Jesuit our week 1, and we played Jesuit our week 2. But Camas played their week 1 before our week 1. So
or Jesuit had,
Jesuit had, excuse me, Jesuit did, and so we were in the stands with the Camas staff scouting Jesuit on the same night because they were playing that game, and so
week 0 in Oregon was a strange one, but it just blows my mind that Skyview had to play somebody that has already had 3 real games on its schedule. So congrats on Skyview. So Skyview, by the way, is playing on Friday night Graham Kapowson. So Graham Kapowson, they lost to I think O'Day, and it was by a touchdown.
Yeah. Graham Kapowson, that's going to be a great football game.
So GK is ranked 7th by Todd from Scorebook Live Washington. And Skyview is one of those teams to watch. By the way, Camas is now ranked number 1 because Lake Stevens lost. So, but in I swear, people ask me who's the favorite in 4A, and I said, there's 10 teams. There's 10, 12 teams that could win it all, get hot in 4A. And I've always, in 3A, it's usually 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah. Right. Well, so yes, when we opened Union, we were a 3A program, right? And I had been coaching at Evergreen. We were a 4A program, and then later Union became a 4A program. And people asked me, "What's the real difference?" I said, "The difference is in 3A, if you're really good, your first couple of playoff games are, you're gonna blow some people out. In the 4A." You have to be really, really good to be able to do that because just the depth of the number of teams that.
Well, Camas lost last year in that first round of the.
Yes,
play.
true.
They were the highest seed to lose in the first round in the 4A play.
Yeah,
I'm not ripping on Camas. I'm saying it's just a lot of there's a lot of depth at 4A.
No, there really are no easy weeks in the postseason as a 4A school. Whereas not that there are for everybody in the 3As, but you might have when you have 16 against 1, that could be a little difficult.
So, Tony, your thoughts on that?
Well, no, exactly what Cale was saying. I think the 3A, and you mentioned, there's 3 or 4, and they're all within a 40-mile radius of each other, basically. So there's that, and then the 2As as well has been kind of, Archbishop had their big run, and then Tumwater and Ferndale. I mean, so. Once you get into those semis, it's kind of the same. It gets a little bit of college football-esque.
No, I think when you at the end of the year when you have your 2A, 3A, and 4A champions, it would depend on the year. But in any given year, any one of those schools could be the best team overall.
Right. You could make a case Archbishop Murphy could have been the best team in state. It's been
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And obviously, whoever wins a 3A would give any 4A champion a game or even beat them in a lot of years.
Yeah. Well, heck, there were some of those Hawkinson teams could have given anybody a run for their money, right?
Gosh, that was a great run from Hawkinson.
Yeah, those were fun teams to watch. Yeah.
So, all right. Also, in week 1, we had something that I was teasing Cale about because, speaking of, those schools in Texas and Florida and Louisiana who've been playing for 2 or 3 weeks, they look at a 99-degree forecast and laugh at us, but anyway, so the forecast was for severe conditions on Friday for opening game, and we had a couple of games scheduled for the 4 o'clock hour in Clark County in the 4 o'clock hour. And so, Cale, take me through that one. That was weird. The game got moved. Mountain View and Washougal were supposed to play at McKenzie, starting at 4:30. It got moved to 7 o'clock at Washougal, which was nice that Washougal was available. So, but take me through why that happens. I mean, I know why, but take our readers through the process.
Well,
listeners. I'm an idiot.
Gosh. I may read the transcript. That's AI generated.
That would be a super fan. I'm going to go back and read the transcript of this, right? So that initially, there are 2 things that can cause a game not to take place. One is the heat index, and the other is the air quality index. Mm-hmm. And so all week we were kind of having to deal with extreme heat and having to make determinations. And there are recommendations that come from the Washington Department of Health as to what you should do if the heat index reaches a certain level. And one of the recommendations is that once the heat index rises above 95, you need to limit all outdoor activity to 2 hours or less, which obviously for a football game, that puts us in a bind. And, so I was talking with our insurance providers and with the WIAA, and I'm like, what if how long of a break, how do you define 2 hours, right? And ultimately, nobody wants to be put into a situation where, no, this will be okay, and then something tragic happens, right? And we're like, whoa. And nobody wants that to happen regardless of how you make that determination. So 95 or above, if we knew that was going to be the heat index, and it doesn't necessarily, the heat index is different than the actual temperature. There are different factors that could make it higher, and there are different factors that can make it lower. And so the problem is in trying to pull off a high school football game, you can't really say, hey, we want to move this game an hour before you're going to play it. But just logistically, you can't do that. And nobody wanted to be in a situation where Mountain View and Washougal weren't going to be able to play.
Right.
So we had to make the call prior to Friday so Washougal could get that set up, because we were confident we could play by 7 o'clock at night, even if the heat index had been too high. It was the 4:30 start that was going to give us trouble.
Right.
Then, as it turned out, the heat index ended up being lower than what the projections had been, but the air quality got way worse. Yeah. And so then all Friday, instead of now worrying about, which we'd already moved the Mountain View Washougal game, and so we weren't going to move that back. That was a done deal, and they flipped home and away. So Washougal will come to McKenzie next year to make up for that. But
when it snows,
right.
When it snows, yes.
But then we're monitoring the air quality, and so that initially that looked really, really bad. When I was looking at my phone at the readings at 5 a.m, it was way above. So anything above 100, so 101 and above, you're done. And it was like at 138 at 5 a.m. And what usually happens is that's like the best the air quality is. As it gets hotter during the day, the air quality tends to rise with that. Mm-hmm. And there was just enough I felt like I was an amateur meteorologist all last week trying to get this figured out, and something changed that was able to, to force that and we could see it happening. It was just really odd. Like at 10 a.m, now it's come down a bit and it's going to continue. So, but you're playing this game as like, it's going to keep getting hotter. What are we going to do? And so luckily it was, below 100, significantly below 100 when we were kicking off on Friday night, and everybody in the county was able to play.
That's when all the ADs, get together with their apps and they
What do you got?
They
Yeah, absolutely.
hack into it as they think it's the first Friday night we got.
Kel's got Doppler radar at home now.
I got a big crowd because that was a huge crowd at Mackenzie Stadium.
Oh, it was it was a large crowd.
Union and Evergreen
I bet.
really packed it.
They turned out.
Oh, it's funny because there's been a couple of times when those two teams. Well, I mean, it hasn't been that big always.
No.
So it was a really nice crowd. So it was
a great environment.
Yeah. So, by the way, I should have put in the highlights that Washougal beat Mountain View
They did.
And so it's interesting is because, Washougal, got a really strong program, but they had the great B kid at quarterback last year, and now he's graduated, moved on to college, and did Tennessee win it all the year after Peyton Manning left? Isn't that the weird thing? Yeah. So is this going to be a Tennessee Peyton Manning thing where you have like the greatest quarterback of all time at Washougal and he graduates and now Washougal? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as a
Cam
possibility.
Newton after he left after the national championship and leaving Auburn. They just fell off a cliff.
Well, I'm saying that Washougal is not falling off a cliff.
Coach Hayjack is not going to let them fall off a cliff.
No, he's great. I never dreamed they were going to fall off the cliff. You're the one who stuck that out there.
Oh, geez. Well, at least Washougal doesn't have to play Camus.
So is Washougal the only two-way team that won?
No, Ridgefield won.
Ridgefield won.
But
That's right.
I think Ridgefield played on Saturday. So yeah, your statement's correct on Friday, maybe.
Friday. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to help positive Paul.
Thank you.
Trying to save you. So great. Hey, here's it. So back to the heat index. Yes, I was making a joke with Cale at Mackenzie Stadium about how these kids in these other states would laugh at us if they called a game because it's just 99.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I've seen this over the years, those early games, week 1, week 2 games, where the officials will just call a timeout on their own for a water break.
Yes.
And they did do that at the Union Evergreen game in the middle of the first quarter or second quarter, whatever it was. And
it was warm.
And it surprised some people. But it didn't surprise me. So because I'd seen that before.
Here's the thing about football week 1. The only way to, I mean, these kids train all year long and you've gone through your practices and whatnot, but the only way to really be in shape to play a football game is to play a football game because you can't you can't replicate it and your body's not used to it. And so week 1 is always the hardest anyway, and then you add temperature to that, and it's a challenge.
The muscle cramps, the leg cramps that happen in week 1 and 2. It's so many more than you see in week 5, 6, 7, 8.
There are other states, I'm sure this happens, but in Northwest in Clark County, and you're talking about the weather. Yeah. Fall sports, we call it fall sports, but it's 4 seasons of weather.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because, you start practice, it could be 100 plus. You're just talking about the week 1. And then, if you're practicing Thanksgiving, we've had ice bowls. It's just you get all 4 seasons.
The year we won the state title, it was, I don't know if it was semifinal week or quarterfinal week.
Semifinals in Spokane.
Yeah, no, but when we were practicing, and we were practicing at that point in time, Mackenzie was the only turf we had, so we were practicing there, and it got iced over. We practiced and it was the old field house at Evergreen was still there, and it might have been 2003. I don't remember if it was 2003, 2004, but. We couldn't go down. You couldn't practice on it. So and that was after having August weather where kids are dying in the heat.
Exactly. So another fun thing that happened for me on Friday. So Orlando Sanchez, KGW TV does the Friday night football show. I think a lot of the local the Portland.
Sure.
But they had Evergreen Union as its game of the week, and so I was able to. Let him know that, I can confirm with you that if Evergreen wins this game, it's the first time they've ever beat Union. And he asked, is there anywhere I could look that up, though? And so I told him about Brian Levesque.
There's one place.
Yeah. There's one place. I call him GSHL historian Brian Levesque, friend of the program. In fact, known him forever. But as a college project years ago, he started GSHLfootball.com. And now it's not called that. That site's taken down. It's not updated. But what he did is he took all that, all the research, and he put it on another site. I think it's scores.gshlfootball.com. I could look that up. But he has all the records of every team's games played all the way back, like for Vancouver into the 40s and 30s.
The 20s. He sent me a couple articles last year about the 1924-25 trap.
So, it's not 100% perfect for some of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s games for any of those schools.
Right,
but for the most part, It is incredible, and he has it set up where for some of them you can list your rival schools and or schools that you've played more than a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So you just have to press on one button and it shows all Evergreen Union results.
Yeah.
And so Union was
I've looked at that a
12-0.
few times. It's
And
cool.
so I wanted to give a shout out to Brian Levesque. He's a teacher at Battleground. I think he's helping out with Camas football this year. Because he's a video genius too. So a lot of football coaches love having him on the staff. And so he helped out a Matheson out at Mountain View. So I think he's now helping out at Camas. But I wanted to say hello to Brian and thank you for your site. It helps us in the media. And then so the guy from KGW,
Orlando.
Yeah, he gave Brian a shout out on the show on Friday night, and it was pretty cool. So that was neat. Let's see here. All right, so
That's almost as big as getting a shout out on this podcast.
almost
right?
Big time.
Yeah, big time. So, all right. So that's high school sports. I guess we should we'll go to that little minor league sport, Major League Baseball minor league sport, right? Yeah, compared to
At least you didn't say
the
team.
NFL. Yeah. I didn't call it I would never call you a minor league team, you Mariners. I mean, you guys are,
At least not on air.
I think you're 10 games ahead of the A's. I mean, you're 10 games ahead of a
A's
real minor
actually
league
have a
team.
winning record the second half.
Yeah.
Better than the Mariners.
No, they have a better record than the Mariners. Second,
Yes.
They've been a better
Yeah.
team than the Mariners second half
That's
season.
pretty mean. But I did say
They actually have some good young players. The A's
Trade
do.
for Brett Rooker, please.
I put in the notes that the Mariners have won 5 of their last 10 games, so I'm asking if you guys are getting ready for a parade.
Wow.
But I also ripped on my team too.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
team, Tony.
Yes. So here's what's going to happen to the Mariners.
Okay.
There's 16 games left. They're 3.5 behind Houston.
Right. And four from the wild card.
Four from the wild card.
Yep.
But there's 4 teams ahead of them, I think, wild card. I mean, that's tough.
That's tough.
It's tough even just trying to catch the division, right?
Right.
But they still got to play Houston 3 times. Somehow, some way, Houston's going to clinch against the Mariners.
Oh gosh.
They're going to just keep they're going to just stick around. They're gonna win maybe like in that series. Like Houston's gonna have to like just win one or something.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, is there any Mariner fan out there that would look at that series and say the Mariners are 2 back by the time they go down there? Right? You would be hard pressed to find any Mariner fan who would think that we would even just win 2 out of 3 and only be 1 back after the series. But nobody in their right mind. Oh yeah, we're going to go down there and sweep Houston to win this
It's
thing.
just something
No
stupid.
way.
Astros are going to celebrate with the Mariners in
Yeah.
the other dugout.
I was shocked by you guys saying that. I'm really not that shocked, but
Yeah, you see our text. What are you talking about?
but I'm more. I thought you were going to say we're going to go sweep the Astros, but then lose 3 to the A's and the White Sox or something like
you know
that.
what?
That would be very Mariner-esque. Yes,
They
to do
finished
that.
with the A's, so guess what?
Yes. Oh,
That would be. You could come down to game 162, and all you got to do is beat the A's,
you
and
beat
you're
the A's?
in. All you got to do, and let's say
2-1.
Logan's going on the hill. Like it's just set up for you to be perfect. And they just called somebody up from AAA. They want to give him a start to see what he's going to do next year. And yeah, you get beat 5-0 or something.
No, it'll be 0-0 through 8.
Well, there's that too.
And then you'll take your starter out and score 2.
That's true. That's true. And then
all that's happened the second half.
And then in the 9th, we'll probably have the bases loaded with nobody out and not score a single run.
Can you get a sac fly? Strikeout, pop up.
Yeah, yes.
That's what it is.
That's what happens, Paul.
I hope I never get that way with my Raiders that you guys are with the Mariners, because I'm still usually
there were some
positive
text
Paul.
messages flying around on Sunday that sounded like Tony and I do about the Mariners.
I will say as I wrote in my notes here, the Raiders are ranked 33rd in a 32 league right now, 32 team league right now. Right? But when are you selling your tickets, Paul? Because overreaction Monday after week 1, and.
Nope.
I was not happy, and it's so funny. I told you, Cale, that I talked to my ticket rep today for some other reasons, but one of the things we said is that there are 16 teams that you wait all year to play a game, or that's the longest off season in professional sports, because the NFL season is the shortest in professional sports. So it's a very, very long off season, and 16 teams, including the people who work for them, like my ticket rep, lose their first game, and it's heartbreaking. And then if you go to 0-2, which the Raiders are huge underdogs in week 2, and it's it can take the wind out of your sails. And so, yeah, a lot of us fans, we weren't, losing is one thing, but we just looked really bad doing it as far as on offense. And so we have the best defense we might have had in 20 years
Right.
since the Super Bowl run that we got killed in that game, but at least we made it to the Super Bowl. But we haven't had much great defense until the last year or so.
So NFL fantasy football observation.
Oh, gosh.
And question.
I'm the worst.
So
but, yeah.
you'd mentioned you've been in a league for 24 years?
Yes.
Pretty much the same core guys?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been in one. This was our 20th season.
Okay.
And what I've noticed for my fandom of teams in the NFL, like I love NFL. Like I'll, whatever game is on, perfect.
Yep.
I've had what was the YouTube quad? What was that last year? Sunday Ticket.
Sunday Ticket.
I had that last year.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I've had
But
it
my
every
point
year.
is that with fantasy football, I love the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's becoming more of just like the history of the Raiders because I have Lamar Jackson going against the Raiders this week. I have evolved to more of I want the fantasy team to do better than the Raiders.
Well, you're a disturbing person.
Okay. But now here's my other question. I joined my nephew started a fantasy league. They do, if you have the league median, you get a win for that if you break the league average.
Oh.
I've never seen that, and they do that. So I lost 2 close games in my old league, and that's just 0-1. But this one, because I scored 130 and the median was only 123, I got a win. So it was 1-1. I was like, what's going on?
So you lost to your opponent, but you still got the win.
Because you beat the league
got
average.
a win.
Got a win.
So you're 1-1. There's
2 a week.
There's 2. You
You can go 2-0 a week.
So, but if
based
you
on
don't, so even if you win your matchup, but you don't beat the median, you're still 1-1.
1-1.
Interesting. That's I like the little twist there.
Yeah, and I don't know if I like.
Well, because I kind of like that because we've all had the week where you put up 180
points, yes.
and your opponent puts up 181 and no one else scored over 120 points and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've won my league 3 times. So in the 24 years or whatever, but I handcuff myself and I'm proud of it. I don't pick Chiefs, Chargers, or Broncos, and I bench anybody who's playing the Raiders.
Now I do that in fantasy baseball. I had to drop Framber Valdez this year because he's the Astro.
But I will. If I had Lamar Jackson as my quarterback, he would be on my bench this week against the Raiders. I will not.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering, and I'm like, I want to win fantasy.
Yeah, I know. Fantasy football is just something I do because it's there, whatever. Okay. I need fantasy baseball because I would never watch baseball without fantasy baseball, and I need something to get me to football season.
I got it.
I don't need fantasy football.
And I think I'm the other way around now.
I'd watch every NFL game that I can,
Yes.
no matter what, whether I had fantasy or whether I had bets on it or not. I just love football that much.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so now you got a little bit of glimpse of that, of me in there. But yeah, that was probably a little too long on fantasy football. I think everyone turned the podcast off.
No, they did not.
No, people are
2 minutes on
this. It's not like we were giving fantasy advice,
That's
right?
true,
Which
yeah.
What are we supposed?
Yeah,
why would
I'm just
anybody
wondering,
listen to us on that? But
Exactly.
no, we were just talking about fantasy football.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, so Tony, Cale, you guys have anything to add as we wrap this thing up?
No, go M's.
Oh, yeah, come on, baby.
Yeah, let's go Raiders. Let's get this. All right. Well, this again, September 13th. Oh, it's Friday the 13th when this thing will post on the website. Oh, my goodness. So we'll be back probably in a couple weeks, and we'll update the sports world in Clark County. Take care, everybody.